In the comfortable living room of their modest colonial house on Maple Avenue in Greenwood, Ohio, Art Sullivan, 73, carefully arranges golden anniversary cards on the mantelpiece, while his wife, Margaret, 71, hums softly in the kitchen as she prepares their morning coffee. The October sunlight streams through lace curtains that Margaret sewed herself 30 years ago, casting warm patterns across family photographs that document 5 decades of shared life. Wedding pictures from 1973, children's school portraits, grandchildren's birthday parties, and countless moments of quiet domestic happiness. Art pauses before their wedding photograph, studying the young faces that seem like strangers now yet somehow remain eternally familiar. Margaret in her simple white dress, her dark hair pinned with baby's breath, her eyes bright with the dreams and possibilities that stretch endlessly before a 21-year-old bride. Himself at 23, serious in his rented tuxedo, trying to look confident and mature, despite feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of the promises they were making to each other. 50 years. Half a century of shared mornings, whispered conversations in the dark, arguments that seemed earth-shattering at the time, but now barely register as memories, moments of joy that felt too perfect to last, but somehow accumulated into a lifetime of contentment. Art has spent more of his life married to Margaret than he spent without her, and he cannot imagine existence any other way. "Art, honey, could you help me with something?" Margaret calls from the kitchen, her voice carrying the comfortable authority of a woman who has spent decades managing a household with gentle efficiency. Art finds his wife standing on a step stool, reaching toward the highest shelf of their pantry cabinet, trying to retrieve a large serving platter that they use only for special occasions. At 71, Margaret remains gracefully beautiful, her silver hair styled in the same soft waves she's worn for 20 years, her figure still slender despite her protests about the pounds that have accumulated over the decades. "Let me get that for you," Art says, steadying the step stool with one hand while reaching for the platter with the other. "I can manage," Margaret replies with mock indignation, though she allows him to help her down from the stool. "I've been reaching high shelves for 71 years. And I've been helping you for 50 of them," Art responds, the familiar rhythm of their gentle teasing as comfortable as a favorite song. The golden anniversary celebration is planned for Saturday afternoon, their children, grandchildren, and closest friends gathering in this same living room to honor a marriage that has endured through 5 decades of change, challenge, and growth. Margaret has been planning the party for months, with the same attention to detail she brought to every family celebration over the years, creating photo albums, preparing favorite recipes, and ensuring that every guest feels welcomed and appreciated. "I need to get the decorations down from the attic this afternoon," Margaret says, wiping down the serving platter with unnecessary thoroughness. "The golden ribbons and the special tablecloth I bought last month." "I'll get them," Art offers. "You shouldn't be climbing around in the attic at your age." "At my age," Margaret raises an eyebrow with feigned offense. "I'm barely older than you, Arthur Sullivan." 2 years younger and infinitely more sensible," Art replies, kissing her cheek. "Which is why I'm doing the attic climbing today." The attic of their home is a repository of 50 years of accumulated life, Christmas decorations organized in carefully labeled boxes, children's artwork preserved in protective sleeves, photo albums chronicling decades of family history, and the countless objects that accumulate in any long-term residence. Art climbs the wooden ladder with more care than he used to require, his 73-year-old joints reminding him that some activities are no longer as effortless as they once were. The afternoon light filters through a small window at the far end of the attic, illuminating dust motes that dance in the air like memories made visible. Art locates the box of anniversary decorations quickly. Margaret's organizational skills ensure that everything has its proper place and clear identification. But as he lifts the box, something catches his eye that he's never noticed before. In the far corner of the attic, partially hidden behind a stack of old furniture and unused household items, stands what appears to be an easel covered with a paint-stained cloth. Art sets down the decoration box and moves closer, his curiosity overcoming his original mission. The easel is clearly well used, surrounded by tubes of paint, brushes of various sizes, and canvases stacked against the wall. Art lifts the cloth covering the easel and gasps at what he sees. A stunning oil painting of their backyard garden in full summer bloom, rendered with a skill and artistry that takes his breath away. The painting captures not just the visual beauty of Margaret's beloved flower garden, but something deeper. The way afternoon light filters through the apple tree, the subtle interplay of colors in the rose beds, the sense of peace and sanctuary that the garden has always provided for their family. This is not the work of a hobbyist or amateur. This is the creation of someone with genuine artistic talent and years of dedicated practice. Art examines the other canvases stacked against the wall, each one revealing another masterpiece, landscapes of places they've visited, portraits of their children and grandchildren, still-life compositions of everyday objects rendered with extraordinary beauty and emotional depth. There are dozens of paintings representing what must be years or even decades of secret artistic work. At the bottom of one canvas, Art notices a signature he recognizes but has never seen in this context. M. Sullivan, written in elegant script. Margaret, his wife of 50 years, has been creating this incredible art in secret, developing and nurturing a talent that he never knew existed. Art sits heavily on an old wooden chair, struggling to process what he's discovered. How could Margaret have hidden such an extraordinary gift for so long? When did she find time to paint? Where did she learn these techniques? Why didn't she ever tell him about this passion that clearly brings her such joy and fulfillment? The questions multiply as he examines painting after painting, each one revealing new depths to the woman he thought he knew completely. There are landscapes that capture the changing seasons of their Ohio countryside with breathtaking accuracy. Portraits of their children that reveal aspects of their personalities that only a mother's loving eye could see. Abstract compositions that suggest emotions and experiences too complex for words. In one corner, Art finds a small notebook filled with Margaret's handwriting, dates, color notes, sketches for future paintings, and what appear to be reflections on her artistic process. The earliest entries are dated nearly 30 years ago, meaning Margaret has been maintaining this secret artistic life for more than half their marriage. Art? Did you find the decorations? Margaret's voice drifts up from below, jolting him back to the present moment. Coming, dear, he calls back, but his voice sounds strange even to himself. Art carefully replaces the cloth over the easel and repositions the other items to conceal the art supplies, though he's not sure why he feels compelled to maintain Margaret's secret. Perhaps because the magnitude of the discovery requires time to process, or perhaps because he senses that revealing his knowledge prematurely might damage something precious and fragile. Downstairs, Margaret is arranging flowers in the vase that will serve as the centerpiece for their anniversary celebration. Her movements are graceful and purposeful, and Art finds himself studying her hands. The same hands that have prepared thousands of meals, comforted crying children, tended to his needs during illness, and apparently created dozens of extraordinary paintings that rival the work of professional artists. "Did you find everything all right?" Margaret asks, not looking up from her flower arrangement. "Yes," Art replies, though the word feels inadequate to describe what he's actually found. "The decorations are all ready for Saturday." Margaret nods, concentrating on the precise placement of each flower stem. Art watches her work and realizes he's seeing something he's never noticed before, the same attention to color, composition, and visual harmony that he witnessed in the paintings upstairs. Margaret isn't just arranging flowers, she's creating a small work of art. That evening, as they sit in their familiar chairs watching the news, Art finds himself stealing glances at his wife, trying to reconcile the woman he's lived with for 50 years with the artist whose work he discovered in their attic. How many evenings has she spent painting while he dozed in front of the television? How many times has she excused herself to tidy up upstairs when she was actually pursuing her art? "You're quiet tonight," Margaret observes during a commercial break. "Everything all right?" "Just thinking about Saturday," Art says, which is true though incomplete. 50 years. It's hard to believe. Margaret reaches over and takes his hand, her fingers intertwining with his in a gesture they've performed thousands of times. "It went by quickly, didn't it? Seems like yesterday we were those nervous kids promising to love each other forever." "Do you ever regret it?" Art asks, the question emerging before he can stop himself. "Giving up your other dreams to be my wife?" Margaret's expression shifts slightly, and for a moment Art thinks he sees something flicker in her eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition that he's somehow touched on something significant. "What other dreams?" she asks carefully. "I don't know. Career aspirations, travel plans, artistic pursuits, things you might have wanted to do if you hadn't married so young." Margaret is quiet for a long moment, her thumb tracing patterns on the back of Art's hand. "Arthur, being your wife and raising our children has been the greatest joy of my life. I've never regretted choosing love over everything else." The phrase, "choosing love over everything else," resonates strangely with Art, suggesting that there might have been something else to choose, some path not taken that required sacrifice. But before he can pursue the thought, Margaret changes the subject to plans for their anniversary celebration, and the moment passes. Over the next 2 days, Art finds himself hyper-aware of Margaret's movements and activities. He notices that she disappears upstairs for an hour or two most afternoons, usually claiming she needs to organize closets or sort through old papers. He observes her lingering at the art supply section when they visit the local department store, though she never purchases anything. He sees her studying the play of light and shadow in their living room, with an intensity that suggests she's seeing something beyond ordinary domestic surroundings. Most tellingly, Art notices Margaret's reaction when they watch a documentary about a famous artist on television. Her attention is completely focused, her comments are informed and insightful, and her emotional response to the artist's work is far more intense than casual interest would justify. The anniversary celebration arrives on a perfect October afternoon, with golden sunlight streaming through windows, draped in the decorations Art retrieved from the attic. Their children, David, now 47 and a successful accountant, and Susan, 44 and a high school principal, arrive early to help with final preparations. Their 4 grandchildren, ranging in age from 12 to 22, bring energy and laughter that fills the house with joy. Friends and extended family members arrive throughout the afternoon, bearing gifts and sharing memories of Art and Margaret's 50-year journey together. The house becomes filled with conversations about the early years of their marriage, stories about raising children during different decades, and reflections on how much the world has changed since 1973. "Tell us about when you first met," requests their oldest granddaughter Emma, a college sophomore who has always been fascinated by family history. Art and Margaret exchange glances, and Margaret begins the story they've told countless times. How they met at a church social when she was 19 and he was 21, how he was immediately smitten with her beauty and intelligence, how they dated for 2 years before he finally worked up the courage to propose. "Grandma was studying art education at the community college," Susan adds, a detail that catches Art's attention despite having heard it many times before. She was going to be an art teacher before she decided to become a full-time wife and mother instead. Art education. Margaret had been studying to become an art teacher, which would explain her technical skill and artistic knowledge. But it also raises new questions about what she gave up when she chose marriage and family over career aspirations. "Do you still paint, Grandma?" asks 12-year-old Michael, David's youngest son. Margaret's pause is almost imperceptible, but Art notices it. "Oh, I dabble occasionally," she says lightly. "Nothing serious, just little sketches here and there." Dabble. The word seems inadequate to describe the sophisticated artwork Art discovered in their attic. Margaret is downplaying her artistic abilities, minimizing something that clearly requires significant skill and dedication. As the afternoon progresses, Art finds himself studying the guests' interactions with Margaret, noting how often people comment on her aesthetic sense, the beauty of her flower arrangements, the elegance of her table settings, the way she's decorated their home over the years. What he's always taken for granted as Margaret's natural good taste might actually reflect a trained, artistic eye and years of secret practice. The highlight of the celebration comes when David presents them with a surprise gift, a professionally made photo album chronicling their 50 years together, with pictures contributed by family and friends spanning decades of shared experiences. As Margaret turns the pages, her eyes fill with tears, and she comments on the composition, lighting, and emotional content of various photographs with the kind of sophisticated analysis that suggests deep visual literacy. "You should have been a professional photographer or artist, Mom," Susan says affectionately. "You always see things the rest of us miss." "I had more important things to focus on," Margaret replies, but there's something wistful in her voice that Art has never noticed before. After the guests leave and the cleanup is finished, Art and Margaret sit in their living room, surrounded by anniversary gifts and feeling the satisfying exhaustion that comes from hosting a successful celebration. The house feels peaceful and full of love, and Art should be completely content. Instead, he's consumed by questions about the secret artistic life his wife has maintained for decades. "Margaret," he says carefully, "I need to ask you something." She looks up from the thank you card she's already begun addressing, her expression attentive but slightly guarded. "I found your paintings," Art says simply. The color drains from Margaret's face and her hands freeze over the note card she's been writing. For a moment, she looks like someone who has been caught in a terrible transgression, rather than someone whose extraordinary talent has been discovered. "In the attic," Art continues gently, "when I went up to get the decorations. Margaret, they're incredible. You're incredibly talented." Margaret sets down her pen and looks at her hands, which are suddenly trembling slightly. "I didn't think anyone would ever find them." "How long?" Art asks. "How long have you been painting?" "Since David started high school," Margaret says quietly. "About 30 years. I found an old easel at a garage sale and thought I might try to remember what I learned in college. It was supposed to be just for a few weeks, just to see if I still remembered anything about art. 30 years of secret painting, hidden in their own attic, pursued during stolen hours when Art thought his wife was organizing closets or reading magazines. "Why didn't you tell me?" Art asks, though he's not sure he wants to hear the answer. Margaret is quiet for a long time, her eyes focused on something beyond their living room windows. When she finally speaks, her voice is soft and sad. "Because I was afraid you'd think I was being selfish. We agreed when we got married that I would focus on being a wife and mother, that my career dreams would take second place to our family. And I never regretted that choice, Art. Our children needed me, you needed me, and being your wife has been the most fulfilling role of my life." "But," Art prompts gently, "but sometimes, when the children were at school and you were at work, I felt like I was disappearing. Like the person I used to be, the person who had dreams about creating beautiful things, was slowly fading away. The painting helped me remember who I was before I became someone's wife and someone's mother." The words hit Art like a physical blow. For 30 years, his wife has been struggling with a sense of lost identity, pursuing a secret passion to maintain connection with dreams she sacrificed for their family, and he never noticed. "I always wondered where you went on those Sunday afternoons," Art says, remembering countless occasions when Margaret would excuse herself for a few hours, claiming she needed to run errands or visit friends. "The community centre has an art studio that's open to the public on weekends," Margaret explains. "I would go there sometimes to work on larger pieces or to be around other people who understood what I was trying to do." Other people who understood. Margaret has been part of an artistic community that Art never knew existed, finding fellowship and validation for talents she couldn't share with her own family. "The paintings in the attic," Art says, "they're not just hobby work, Margaret. They're professional quality. You could have gallery shows, exhibitions, sales to collectors." Margaret shakes her head. "I never painted for recognition or money. I painted because I needed to, because something inside me required that kind of expression. It was enough that the paintings existed, that I was creating something beautiful." But Art can see in his wife's face that it wasn't entirely enough. That part of her yearned for acknowledgement and validation of her artistic gifts. She chose to keep her talent hidden rather than risk disrupting the family harmony that meant more to her than personal recognition. "I'm sorry," Art says, the words inadequate but necessary. "I'm sorry that you felt you couldn't share this with me. I'm sorry that I never created space in our marriage for your dreams." "You didn't do anything wrong, Arthur," Margaret says firmly. "We made our choices together, and I've never regretted them. The painting was my secret joy, something that belonged just to me. In some ways, keeping it private made it more precious." But Art can see the tears in his wife's eyes, can hear the longing in her voice for recognition and validation that she's denied herself for decades. Margaret may not regret her choices, but she's grieved for the roads not taken, the artist she might have been if circumstances had been different. That night, as they prepare for bed after their momentous anniversary celebration, Art makes a decision that will change their retirement years in ways neither of them can anticipate. "Margaret," he says, as she brushes her silver hair at the vanity table that has been part of their bedroom furniture for 40 years, "I want you to show me everything, every painting, every sketch, every piece of art you've created. And then I want you to teach me about what you do, how you see the world through an artist's eyes." Margaret stops brushing and looks at her husband's reflection in the mirror. "You really want to know about my painting?" "I want to know about everything that matters to you," Art says. "For 50 years, I thought I knew you completely. Now I realize that you've had this whole other life, this incredible talent and passion that I never discovered. I don't want to spend whatever years we have left being ignorant about something so important to who you are." Over the following weeks, Margaret begins sharing her artistic world with Art in ways she never imagined possible. She shows him every painting in chronological order, explaining her evolving techniques and the stories behind individual pieces. She teaches him about color theory, composition, and the way light affects perception. She introduces him to artists whose work has influenced her own development. Most importantly, Margaret begins painting openly for the first time in their marriage. She converts the spare bedroom into a proper studio, brings her easel downstairs, and works on new pieces while Art reads nearby or watches television. The secrecy that characterized 30 years of hidden artistic practice gives way to integration of art into their daily life together. "Why don't you enter some local art competitions?" Art suggests one afternoon as he watches Margaret work on a landscape painting of their neighborhood in autumn. "I'm too old to start seeking recognition now," Margaret replies, mixing colors on her palette with practiced precision. "You're too talented not to share your gifts with a wider audience," Art counters. "And besides, you're only 71. Many artists don't hit their stride until later in life." The conversation leads to Margaret's first public exhibition, a small showing at their local library featuring 10 of her best pieces from the past 3 decades. The response from their community is overwhelming. People who have known Margaret for years are astonished by her talent, and several paintings sell to collectors who want to commission additional work. "I can't believe I kept this hidden for so long," Margaret tells Art on the evening of her exhibition opening as they stand before a painting she created 20 years ago. A portrait of their grandson as a toddler that captures not just his physical appearance, but his joyful spirit and curiosity about the world. "You weren't hiding it," Art says, taking her hand. "You were protecting it until you felt safe enough to share it." There's a difference. The success of Margaret's first exhibition leads to opportunities neither of them anticipated. She's invited to join the Regional Artists Association, to participate in gallery shows throughout Ohio, and to teach painting classes at the community center where she once worked in secret. Art becomes her biggest supporter and promoter, learning to speak knowledgeably about her techniques and artistic vision. More importantly, the revelation of Margaret's secret artistic life deepens their marriage in unexpected ways. They begin taking art-focused trips to museums and galleries, spending hours discussing paintings and sculptures with the kind of passionate intensity usually reserved for much younger couples, discovering shared interests. Art develops his own appreciation for visual art, while Margaret finally has someone who understands and values the work that has sustained her for decades. "You know what I've realized?" Art says one evening as they sit in Margaret's new studio, he reading a biography of Georgia O'Keeffe while she works on a painting of their garden in winter light. "What's that?" Margaret asks, pausing to study the effect she's trying to achieve. "For 50 years, I thought our marriage was complete. I thought we knew everything about each other, shared everything important, had no secrets or hidden aspects to our relationship. But discovering your art didn't make our marriage less complete. It made it more complete." Margaret sets down her brush and turns to face her husband. "How do you mean?" "I mean that all those years when you were painting in secret, you were becoming more yourself, developing parts of your personality and spirit that made you a richer, more interesting person. I was loving someone who was constantly growing and evolving, even though I didn't realize it was happening." Margaret walks over and sits on the arm of Art's chair, something she hasn't done in years. "Do you really feel that way? You're not hurt that I kept something so important from you?" "I'm grateful," Art says honestly. "Grateful that you found a way to nurture your dreams, even when you felt like you couldn't share them. Grateful that you became such an accomplished artist, even while being an incredible wife and mother. And grateful that I finally get to see this part of you, even if it took 50 years. As they approach their 51st anniversary, Art and Margaret's life has taken on new dimensions that neither of them expected. Margaret has become a respected member of the local arts community, with her paintings hanging in galleries and private collections throughout Ohio. Art has become something of an expert on his wife's work, able to discuss her artistic development and thematic concerns with the sophistication of a longtime gallery owner. But the most significant change is in their relationship itself. The discovery of Margaret's secret has led to a new phase of their marriage, characterized by deeper communication, shared artistic interests, and the kind of mutual discovery usually associated with the early stages of romantic relationships. "I keep thinking about what might have been different if I'd told you about my painting from the beginning," Margaret says one morning as they drink coffee in her studio, surrounded by works that span 3 decades of artistic growth. "Maybe nothing would have been different," Art replies. "Maybe you needed to develop your art privately before you could share it. Maybe the secrecy was part of what made it special for you. Or maybe we could have shared this joy for 30 years instead of just discovering it now." Art considers this possibility. "Margaret, If you had told me about your painting 30 years ago, when I was working 60-hour weeks and the children needed constant attention, would I have been able to appreciate it the way I do now? Would I have had time to really understand what your art meant to you? Margaret ponders the question. Probably not. You were so focused on providing for the family, and I was so focused on managing the household. We might not have had the emotional space for something that seemed like a luxury rather than a necessity. Then maybe this was perfect timing, Art suggests. Maybe we needed to wait until we had the leisure and perspective of retirement to fully appreciate gifts that were always there but couldn't be properly celebrated during the busy years of building a family and career. The thought comforts both of them. The idea that Margaret's secret wasn't a flaw in their marriage, but a gift that waited for the right moment to be revealed and celebrated. On the morning of their 51st anniversary, Art wakes early to find Margaret already at her easel, working on a new painting, as golden morning light streams through the studio windows. She's painting their bedroom as it looks at dawn, with sunlight falling across the quilt her mother made for their wedding, and Art's sleeping form barely visible in the gentle shadows. "How long have you been working?" Art asks, wrapping a robe around himself and moving to stand behind her. "Since about 5, Margaret says, adding a subtle highlight to represent the way light catches the wooden headboard Art built himself 40 years ago. "I woke up with this image in my mind and couldn't get back to sleep until I started working on it." Art studies the painting, amazed by how Margaret has transformed their ordinary bedroom into something timeless and beautiful. She's captured not just the visual details, but the sense of peace and contentment that comes from 51 years of sharing the same bed, the same dreams, the same quiet morning rituals. "It's beautiful," he says simply. "It's us," Margaret replies. "Not the young couple in our wedding photos, but the people we became together, the people who learned to love each other not just despite our secrets and hidden aspects, but because of them." As they prepare for another anniversary celebration, smaller than last year's golden anniversary party, but no less meaningful, Art reflects on the year that has passed since he discovered Margaret's artistic secret. Their marriage hasn't just survived the revelation, it has been transformed by it. They are no longer the couple who thought they knew everything about each other after 50 years together. They are the couple who discovered that love can deepen and evolve even after decades of shared life, that secrets aren't always betrayals, and that the most precious gifts sometimes require patience and proper timing to be fully appreciated. "Do you think we have any other secrets?" Art asks as they hang Margaret's latest paintings in preparation for the small gathering of family and friends who will help them celebrate 51 years of marriage. "I hope so," Margaret says, surprising him with her answer. "I hope we keep discovering new things about each other for whatever years we have left. I hope we never stop being mysterious and interesting to each other." The secret that Art discovered in their attic wasn't a betrayal or deception. It was a gift that waited 50 years to be properly received and celebrated. And in the twilight of their marriage, surrounded by the beautiful evidence of Margaret's hidden artistic life, they have found a new kind of love, not the passionate romance of youth or the comfortable companionship of middle age, but the profound appreciation that comes from truly seeing and valuing each other's hidden depths and secret gifts. As their guests arrive for the anniversary celebration, exclaiming over Margaret's latest paintings and marveling at the artistic talent that was hidden for so long, Art realizes that some secrets are worth keeping until the perfect moment for revelation arrives. And sometimes the most beautiful discoveries come not from knowing everything about someone, but from remaining open to the possibility that love can continue to surprise and delight us, even after 50 years of thinking we understood it completely. The story that began with an accidental discovery in an attic ends with a marriage renewed and deepened by the celebration of gifts that were always present but needed time, patience, and the right circumstances to be fully appreciated and shared. Margaret's secret wasn't a flaw in their relationship. It was a treasure waiting for the perfect moment to enrich their love in ways neither of them could have imagined.